بالعالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين لا سيما مولانا وسيدي صاحب العصر والزمان روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء وأجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف ولعنة دائمة على أعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. This night is known as Sham Ghariban, the night of loneliness, the night of strangers. But before I go to what happened on the 11th night of Muharram, and what the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam, those who had survived the tragedy, what they had felt and what they were experiencing, we realized that after the shahadat of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, the tragedies did not end for Imam Hussein and for the family of Abu Abdullah. On the day of Ashura, a few hours ago, when we commemorated the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and we mentioned and we went through the tragedies of that day, brothers and sisters, that was really just the beginning of the tragedy of the day of Ashura. As we know that after Imam Hussein alayhi salam was killed, the tragedies continued to mount upon the family of the Prophet. As the writers of the Maqtal, those who narrate the tragedy of Karbala, as they mentioned in their books, that one of the first things that the enemies in the camp of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad and the army of Umar ibn Asad Mal'un, one of the first things that they began to do was go and to loot the body of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. It was not enough that they had killed him. It was not enough that there was hundreds and hundreds of wounds on his body. It wasn't enough that his body had been showered with arrows. But we're told in the books of Maqtal that people would come and try to steal whatever belongings Abu Abdullah had. Somebody came and stole the turban off of his head. Somebody came and stole the sandals off of his feet. Somebody came and stole the shirt off of the back of Abu Abdullah. Eventually, as people were coming one after the other, one man comes to the body of Abu Abdullah. As his body is laying barren on the plains of Karbala, covered in blood, and he looks at the hand of Imam Hussein and he sees that Imam has a ring on his finger, and he wants the ring off of the finger, so he begins to pull at the ring. The more he pulls, the more he finds he can't get the ring off of the hand of Abu Abdullah. This is the ring that had been given to him from his grandfather, from his father, had been carried on through the generations. Brothers and sisters, the writers of Maqtal mention that as this man tried to pull the ring, he couldn't get it out, so he reached into his pocket, he reaches into his back and he takes out a knife. He begins to slice off the finger of Abu Abdullah to get to that ring. Eventually he cuts off the finger of Abu Abdullah and takes the ring off of his hand. Brothers and sisters, this is not the only tragedy. As we know that Umar ibn Asad had given the order for all of the heads of the shuhada to be carried, to be cut off of their bodies and to be taken towards Kufa, that they should meet the heads in the city of Kufa and then to take those to Sham, to the palace of the cursed Yazid. As they go to try to find all the bodies of the shuhada, they begin to take the heads one after the other. Eventually they get to Abu Abdullah and they remove his head from his body. The cursed Khuli is taken charge of the head of Abu Abdullah. That's not the whole tragedy of the day of Ashura, though, brothers and sisters. The point comes when Umar ibn Asad, he looks around and he says, he asked 10 of his best horsemen, he says that come with your horses. And as they approach to the plains of Karbala, Umar ibn Asad tells the horsemen, he says that sharpen the hooves of these horses. I want you to trample over all of the bodies of the shuhada of Karbala. One by one they began to mention the names of the companions, and one by one, as every companion is mentioned, there is somebody in the enemy forces who had some relationship, some family ties to that companion, and they tell Umar ibn Asad that we won't allow you to trample the body of that man. He was from our family, he was from our tribe. We don't allow you to desecrate his body in that way. Eventually, one by one, the bodies are left on the side, and then they come to the family of Rasulullah, they come to the family of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Every family member on that day of Ashura who was killed, they all had some sort of relation to the enemy forces. They had cousins, they had nephews, they had somebody on that side to vouch for them. And so their bodies were also spared that indignation and that disrespect on the day of Ashura. Finally, it gets to one point where Umar ibn Asad says, are there any other bodies left on the plains of Karbala that we can now humiliate and desecrate? And they realize that the body of Abu Abdullah, the headless, the lifeless body, is laying on the plains of Karbala. They say, is there anybody in the audience in the enemy's camp who has any relationship? And as we know, brothers and sisters, that Amir al-Mu'mineen was no longer there. Lady Fatima Zahra alayha salam was no longer there to claim the body of her son. Nobody was there to claim the body of Abu Abdullah. It's at this point that the curse Umar ibn Asad, he tells his horsemen, he says that get ready, go to the water, let your horses drink to their fill so they have the energy, and then go and trample over the body of Abu Abdullah. Brothers and sisters, as the horses are beating over the body of Imam al-Hussein, Imam Zainul Abidin is in the tent. Lady Zainab is with Imam as-Sajjad. Lady Zainab hears the sound of something breaking. It sounds like dishes or something that are breaking. She turns to her nephew Imam Sajjad. She says, oh my Imam, what is that sound that we hear? What is that breaking sound that we hear in the background? Imam Sajjad begins to say, oh my dear aunt, those are the ribs of my father Abu Abdullah. Those are the ribs of my father Abu Abdullah being crushed under the hooves of the horses. Brothers and sisters, we can only imagine the grief of Sayyid as-Sajjad hearing the body of his father being trampled under the hooves. We turn our attention to Lady Fatima that day when she was being pushed against the door and her rib was being crushed. At least when Sayyid al-Shuhada's ribs are being broken, he is no longer alive. We can only imagine what Sayyida Fatima was feeling when she was being attacked and her rib was being crushed between the house and the door of her house. Once they've done desecrating the body of Abu Abdullah, the enemy, and this is still before the time of Maghrib, before Sham Ghariba approaches, they give the order to the enemy troops to go towards the tents. They tell them to go towards the Khaymagah and to light fire to all of the tents. As they go and light fire to the tents, the women and the children run from one tent to the other. As they light that tent on fire, they run towards another tent. Eventually one tent is left remaining. That is where Sayyid as-Sajjad is. The enemy forces, they go into the tents. They loot whatever belongings the Ahlul Bayt have. They even loot the prayer mat that Imam as-Sajjad was sleeping upon. Eventually, as all the tents are on fire, the women and children are with the Imam of the time, Imam Sajjad, and they're in the company of Imam as-Sajjad. Brothers and sisters, this is where the Sham Ghariba begins to approach, as nightfall begins to approach on the family of the Prophet. As night approaches and the tents are left to smolder and burn in the night, as the tents have been burning and the family have been looted and all of their possessions have been taken, all of their loved ones have been given their lives on the day of Ashura. Eventually, brothers and sisters, they come to the tent of Imam Sajjad. They seek comfort in the presence of the Imam of the time. And we'll conclude with this one last sentence, that as all of these tragedies unfold, as all of these difficulties go one after the other, still Lady Zainab alayha salam, she remains resolved. Although she's seen the greatest of tragedies, no wonder we call her Masa'ib, the woman who experienced so many tragedies on the day of Ashura, losing her children Own and Muhammad, losing Abul Fadl Abbas, losing her brother and her master Hussein. But still on that night, the Sham Ghariba, although Lady Zainab has very little energy and strength and stamina in her body, We're told in the books of Maktal that still she prays her Salatul Layl. She prays her Namaz al-Shab, and she remembers that her brother had told her, "Oh my dear sister, do not forget me in your Salatul Layl. Do not forget me on that night when I will be no longer. Keep me in your prayers and keep me in your du'as on that tragic night." وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.